Twee zijn 2 Chouf Classics, voor zij die eens willen doordrinken, met andere woorden. Maar die andere is wel, die in Hoefalizen is in mei, 14 mei.
Het is misschien een eindje, maar
Dat is wel de moeite, denk ik.
La Trappe had misschien wat dichter bij huis geweest.
Ja.
Om,
dat is een tip voor Golanzo. Dat moeten zij maar oplossen.
Hoe dan ze door die wegenwerken rijden, daarnet, het zijn kleine groepjes, zag ik dat links van de weg de borden misschien wel iets meer aan de kant konden gestaan hebben. Of toch een signaalgever erbij. Maar het is geen wringend peloton die naar een massasprint gaat voorlopig.
En we zijn al lang blij dat er geen wagens over de straat rijden.
Ja.
Het nummer van Tibor del Grosso voor het Metec Cycling Team. Tibor del Grosso. Dit is de derde manche van de Exterio Cycling Cup. Le Samin, Montserrat, Drenthe, Opsake. Hier heel even over de middenberm. Straks in mei opnieuw een paar manches kort na elkaar. Veenendaal op 21 mei. 22 mei is het de Antwerp Port Epic. Circuit de Wallonie 26 mei. Marcel Kind Classic 29 mei. We gaan dan naar dwars door het Hageland half juni. De Elfstedenronde een dag later in Brugge. En dan tot slot in augustus en september de Eurometropooltour en het kampioenschap van Vlaanderen. 11 manches in totaal. En er zitten mooie wedstrijden bij.
Ja, dat is een mooi criterium geworden ondertussen.
Ja, en stilaan, het is nog wat vroeg natuurlijk, maar geeft dat nog 5 jaar extra. En dat is dan een gevestigde waarde.
Maar ik denk dat dat nu ook al zo is. Hè. Natuurlijk met de nieuwe naam is het ons een beetje zoeken om te weten dat dat hetzelfde is als vorig jaar. Maar die Franse ploegen zien het echt al als die Belgische Coupe de France.
Wat is er aan de hand met Burger?
Ja, die is even...
Die zoekt een burger.
Dat weet ik niet, maar
Om
het
het kracht
zit
op te
korte
doen.
energie, inderdaad.
Ja.
En dat is het verraderlijke aan tv. Daarnet had ik al gemerkt bij de eerste beelden dat we zagen. Als hij van kop kwam en achteraan moest inpikken, dat hij echt al moest een versnelling inzetten om het tempo weer op te drijven. Dus hij is echt al duidelijk leeggelopen.
Ja, dit geeft de burger niet echt moeite, moet ik zeggen. De man van 24 uit Warmenhuizen. Dit seizoen al een keer of 5 gekoerst. Maar daar staan wel een aantal DNF's achter die naam. 3 keer met namelijk Jelletje. Ja, dat zal nodig zijn om in te pikken, denk ik. Kan dat nog, als daar straks zo'n sneltrein voorbij komt gereden?
Ja, het is een grotere groep, dus ik kan misschien wel een beetje beschutting.
Can't carry too much speed into one of the narrower sections. You're always making an acceleration out of the corner, and that takes its toll.
Out of the corner of my eye, hey, good catch there, I saw that the second group is approaching here on this rather lovely industrial estate in Hogeveen. It's not the most exciting of places, but it's a place where you can easily close off the roads, and that's we've seen almost 2 weeks ago in the Healthy Aging Tour that of the Bluizon Friesland Tour, as we should call it now. That's not easy. That was a little bit of a trouble there in the north of Friesland, closing off the road. So having here on the industrial estate, where on a Sunday there's not a lot of traffic, might be a sensible choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the traffic wardens, the police, those who are, some of them are volunteers, you know, they do a tremendous job in closing the roads, in protecting the riders and making sure that the safety of the riders, that is their first priority. But as you say, you can see all the traffic just stopped at the side of the road at the junction. But as you say, it's a Sunday, very slow day here in the Netherlands. People taking it easy.
It's always a slow day here in north of the Netherlands. But anyways, despite the fact that we have no traffic lights at all, I managed to fail my driving exam 4 times. So, hey, how about that? Our breakaway of it's great. Took me 5 times, but never mind. Our breakaway, our free, is down to 2 with Rick Ottema there in the blue, absolutely the strongest of the 2. He is one of those riders, 29 years of age at the moment, who's always been so close to a pro contract, but never really could make that step up. But he absolutely has the qualities to be a rider on a professional European continental team. But he never really made it. He's been part of this team for a while. Metec, one of the oldest continental third division teams in the Netherlands. very dedicated sponsor. A lot of good riders also from that team. And last year, 2 of their riders made that step up to the pro ranks, even when they were 25, 26. So it is still possible. For example, Sjoerd Baks did it last year. And they need these kind of races to really show themselves. Back with our second peloton. They are closing in on the first one. We have Jasper Schout, Sven Burger now coming back to this group led by Timo Roose and Kevin Vauquelin. Also Benjamin de Klerk, the brother of Tim de Klerk. And of course their dedicated sprinter Hugo Hofstetter. Means that we are beginning again with this race. Rick Pluimers here at the front, one of their development team riders. His sister is also a professional rider on the Next G racing team, one of the promising young riders in the women's peloton in the Netherlands. And well, we have quite a few of those anyways.
But, you always have them coming through the ranks. And yeah, Ilse had a great ride last week in the Blows on Friesland Tour. And as you say, constantly that talent developing in the Netherlands, both in the male and female ranks.
It's because we, I think it's because people ride bikes from when they were 2, 3, 4 years old. We go to school on our bikes. Nowadays, more and more parents tend to take their children to school in a car. But still, the infrastructure in the Netherlands is made for bikes. As you know, you've been here many times. And yeah, if you have an infrastructure that is ready for bikes, people ride bikes because it's safe.
They certainly do, and only an infrastructure I'd love to see in the UK. It would be wonderful, as you say, just to make those smaller journeys on bike to school, to work, whatever that may be.
In this group, we have more riders. The numbers on my start list seem to be slightly off because the rider in this group with number 26 is indicated here as being Lou van Belle, the time trial specialist. But on my start list, it's actually not. It's Mick van Dijken. So we have to swap these around.
Yeah, in this group, another rider who you can just see has been sitting on the back of that third group on the road. Donovan Grandin, the track world champion from France of Achterhes Samsic. Of course, he's got 3 riders in this second group up the road, only around 13 seconds separating these 2 groups. But of course, he's not going to come through and do any work in that next group because they have their main rider of the day, Hugo Hofstetter, in this group, and he can just sit back, almost have a little bit of an easier ride, just follow those wheels. And yeah, make use of the shelter and the draft from the other riders at that point.
As you can see, that last little gap is always the most difficult part to close because they're upping the pace here again. The boys in yellow of the Jumbo-Visma team with Rick Pluimers, Pascal Eenkhoorn, Mick van Dijken, Timo Roose, and then the chasing group here with Robert Gijs, who is fast, of course. You know him as well from his track background, the man with number 1, because, well, the man who won here last year, Rune Herregods, is not only busy being a med student, studying medicine in his 4th year already, but he's also out, unfortunately for him, with a toxoplasmosis infection. And that is something that, according to one of the doctors I read, is not something that would slow down normal people, but when you're a pro athlete, you miss that last 1, 2, 3%, and that is really tiring you out. And one day can be absolutely great, and the other day can be completely nothing at all. So he's out with that, unfortunately, Rune Herregods, but well, remember that name. He will be back, and he will be joining a World Tour team pretty soon as well. Won his first race of the year in Ruta del Sol from a breakaway, took their first yellow jersey there in the south of Spain, and there's already interest from at least 5 World Tour teams into the Belgian rider who won here last year, when the race was all the way at the end of October, because normally the race here is in March, but because we were still in a lockdown here in the Netherlands and basically everywhere in Europe, they applied for a new date, and it was the last race weekend of the year in October.
It was very difficult for the teams and riders, wasn't it? There was either some riders who still had something left, had fresher legs than those who'd had a really long season to tackle. But I think for him, if he's got offers and he's got interest from World Tour teams, it's in his best interest to make sure that he does recover and gets his health back to 100%.
Yeah, and that is exactly what the team allows him. There was also already interest last year into this talented young man from Belgium, but he deliberately opted for another year with Sport Vlaanderen Baloise to get more experience, more opportunities for himself as well. But yeah, teams like Trek Segafredo have already expressed their interest into Rune Herregods, the winner of last year. Andrea Pasqualon was second. He is currently in the Tirreno. Groenewegen was a third. Koen Vermeldvoort was fourth, and Arne Marit was a fifth. And Koen Vermeldvoort is not here. He's here with Volker Wessels, 181, and is in that second peloton. He is one rider from the region, always somebody to look out for, because he's always good in these kind of races. I was just looking at these three people just having a casual walk there on the side of the road, and not even aware that we have a mechanical problem there for one of the Arkea riders. Looks like a flat tire there as the two groups are together, with the really large figure in the middle there, 182, Tijmen Eysing. Well, the two groups behind it have joined Hannah.
I feel like now we've got group 3 and 4 have now made that junction. They have now become group 3. I actually think they'll have a little bit of impetus now from the other teams, the other riders who have just joined, perhaps from maybe the continental teams. They can see that the second group on the road is only sort of 20, 25, 26 seconds up ahead, and it's in their best interest that they want to try and put themselves back into contention and try and close that gap sooner rather than later. So I think for that third group, if they can get that cohesion together and start to work together and not have that moment of lull, that moment of pause where no team, no rider really wants to take it up, that they can start to close in now. The other thing that they do have, if the group swells to too many riders, you always get that part where no one really wants to take it up at all, and then no one wants to do that workload at the moment.
Well, we are heading back to the Vanberg, and if you're new to racing in this region, it's actually a rubbish tip. It's 44 meters high. There's a big industrial complex there in a town called Wijster. And they basically threw all the rubbish there, paved it, and made it into a rather wonderful mountain bike park. You can walk there. There's sheep walking there as well. And also last year we had the European Cyclocross Championships on the Vanberg. So it's a very multifunctional piece of infrastructure here in the middle of the province of Drenthe. And the Netherlands have 12 provinces, Drenthe being basically the least populated of the 12. So we are heading back to the Vanberg. The gradients, Hannah, are pretty steep.
They are, and we see the gradients of the Vanberg up to sort of 10.8%. The average gradient only 4.2%, but doesn't really tell the full story, because you have that middle section of the climb where it does really start to ramp up, and then that final sort of 200, 150 meters is covered in cobbles, the first part in asphalt, and you can see the Vanberg is looming ever closer, but it is a very difficult climb, only around 500 meters in length, but those steeper gradients certainly do the damage. And when we've said there isn't much wind, this is a part of the race where things really do start to split up, because it's not only the climb that they have to contend with, but the really fast descent over the top of the Vanberg. It's very narrow, usually always in one long line, makes it very difficult for riders to move up, but also where we see lots of splits start to happen. As soon as one or two riders lose the wheel, the gaps really start to open up over the other side of the Vanberg.
Yep, it's a beautiful, it's actually a fantastic project that they started here in the province of Drenthe, who want to be known as the bike province of the Netherlands. They even got the UCI credentials as being one of the cycling centres of, I don't know exactly what the UCI calls it, but they have given it one of these awards for being a most bike-friendly region.
It's tremendous, and I think that's really shown, and not only because of the infrastructure that you have in the Netherlands, but also having this multifaceted location around the Vanberg where it can be used for so many different things, not only road races, but as you mentioned before, we have the European Cyclocross Championships there. It can be used for so many, and because it is quite a quiet part of the world here, not too much traffic around, it is used for youth racing, sort of the junior races, under 23, into the elite and pro ranks.
And even if there's not a lot of wind on top of the Vanberg, there's always wind. I remember a couple of years ago that Jolien D'Hoore was actually picked up by the wind and then, well, just smashed back onto the asphalt, broke her collarbone for the fifth time. There was just this really weird gust of wind on top of the Vanberg. It's always windy up there. And as you can see by the flags on the side of the road, it is really picking up at the moment. That could be a very interesting final.
It certainly can, and coming onto the right-hand shoulder of these riders at the moment, and with so many left and right turns with the change in direction of the wind as you'll make your way through the countryside, that also sort of plays into a factor. And we saw yesterday how it was a lot of headwind sort of back into Hoogveen. Again, it's a southeasterly wind throughout the race today, but it has started to pick up as we see our lead two riders start to break up now. This is Jasper Schouten, who's just losing the wheel of his breakaway companion Ulrich Otema.
Yeah, Otema by far the strongest of our breakaway, very attacking rider. His girlfriend is a former non-professional time trial champion of the Netherlands, Manon. So they make a nice little cycling couple. As you can see here, you can see the mountain bike trails there. You can see the asphalt. You can actually do some fantastic walks there. There's an adventure park. There's so much to do here for so many types of sport. And then the peloton, or basically the first group, is joining. And it looks like they are gaining some ground there on that bigger group behind them. They haven't even started the climb just yet, as it's Joran Bloem here at the front for the Ablok cycling team. So the situation now on top of the Vanberg, we have one leader, Rick Otema, who is from the Metec Solawat team, 29 years of age. Was already sixth here in the past 4 years ago. Always targets this race. Rick Otema comes from the province of Groningen, which is just above here. And this is that fantastic cobbled sector where the finish of the Dutch National Championships were last year, and also the finish of the Cyclocross European Championships. It's a very iconic piece here. Not a lot of people. I would expect it more people to be there, but maybe it's a VIP-only sector. Could be.
It's also one of the first editions of Ronde van Drenthe that we've had in sort of normal circumstances where we can have fans at the side of the road. So the last time being 2019. So it is a warm welcome sight to see.
Rick Otema leading. He has done the double ascent of the Vanberg, now goes back down. We have a loop of 27 kilometers before we come back here. So we go back to our finish place of Hoogeveen and then come back here for the fifth and last time, and that will be at 14 kilometers from the finish line. Let's see who is in this group. See that This is the group with Hofstetter with number 72. For him, it's all about surviving this climb and then, of course, putting up his best sprint. He came in second in Grand Prix Le Samain, just behind Matteo Trentin. That was the first race of this Exterior Cycling Cup. And he is there again. And, of course, as we all know, Achterhes Samsic need the points. They're all about points this year to make that promotion towards the World Tour and get the invitations to all the most important races of the World Tour, and the biggest prize of them all, of course, being the Tour de France.
It's important for teams and their sponsors, isn't it, being on that biggest stage in professional cycling, and that's the aim that they set out from the start of this year. We've seen them multiple times have multiple riders in the top 10 and perhaps not winning the race, but just making sure they can accumulate as many UCI points as they possibly can.
This is that third group that is now 38 seconds behind our second group. The second group with the 4 riders there of Jumbo-Visma. This is Tibor Del Grosso, first year elite rider, also from this region. Fantastic cyclocross rider as well. That's why he probably goes a little bit of off-road here. And also the best Dutch junior at the most recent World Championships in the time trial, because he was actually denied a place in the road race because the Dutch national coach miscalculated how many juniors he could line up. And then, like 3 days before the race, they had to cut out one rider. And because Tibor had already done the time trial, hey, you can go home. Well, he was the best junior rider of them all. So that was kind of a weird decision.
Real heartbreak there.
That was a really heartbreaking, rider. Absolutely one of the talented youngsters. And his big brother is in that group as well, Bodi Del Grosso. We see that Jasper Schouten is now picked up by that first group. Maybe we can give you the names again. In this first group we have for Achterhes Profronde, the Hungarian lead-out rider. For normally Biniam Gremai, Barnabas Piek. We have 4 riders for Jumbo-Visma with Pascal Eenkhoorn, Rick Pluimers, Timo Roose and Mick van Dijken. Casper van Uden defends the colours of Team DSM. 3 riders as well in the red for Achterhes Samsic: Hugo Hofstetter, Benjamin de Klerk and Kevin Fauquelin. 2 riders for the A-Block cycling team, Joren Bloem and Joen Toenen. Then 1 rider, here he is, for A-Link, that's Jasper Schouten. And that is this group. We also have Søren Warenskjold, the rider from Norway here. And I think I have mentioned them all, including, of course, Dries de Bont. That is more or less this group. And this is the peloton. 136 riders started today. Let's see if we can identify some riders here. I think we kind of lost David Dekker somewhere along the way. Haven't really read what happened with him, but he doesn't seem to be in this group either, because the sole representative of Jumbo-Visma has just attacked from this group and is in a small group of about 5 riders just before. That's Lou van Belle. So I just wonder what happened to Dekker today. Robert Gijs, the rider with number 1 there. We also have we're back to group number 1. I just gave you all the names. 4 riders of Jumbo-Visma, 3 of Achterhes Samsic. And Jasper Schouten, who was in our breakaway of the day, just being dropped from this group. 2 riders also of A-Block, 1 for Achterhes Profronde, 1 for DSM, 1 for Total Energie, that's Dries van Gestel, and 1 for Alpecin Phoenix, and 1 for UNOX. So yeah, strength in numbers here for the riders in yellow and that is, of course, Jumbo-Visma. Wonder what kind of plan they will hatch and play the card of Mick van Dijk, for example.
It becomes a little bit more open now, doesn't it, for Jumbo-Visma now that sort of David Dekker isn't in the frame of things. And there was a point where we could see Jumbo-Visma, they were perhaps waiting. Perhaps there was a problem, and perhaps maybe it's just not his day today. Maybe he said, yeah, I'm not feeling too good. I'm not in that leading group at the moment. So they have persisted with this group, and they've opened up over a minute over this third group on the road. Only one of their other riders, I think it's Lo van Bella, is in that third group. So, of course, he can just take an easier ride as all of Jumbo-Visma coming through and contributing to the work at the moment.
Yeah, everybody is now absolutely dedicated in this group, all four of them. And I think our winner might be from that first group. But still, we have one leader who's been on the attack basically from the first hour of this race, when we had all these cobbles in the first 25, 30 kilometers. And that is Rick Ottema, the 29-year-old from the north of the country. And he's always one of the riders who attacks, has good results in some of the minor classics here in Belgium and the Netherlands, but never really made that jump up to the highest level of the cycling, a professional cycling contract with either a pro team or a World Tour team.
Yeah, and sometimes it just doesn't work out for some reason for some riders, despite the results that they have and the strength that they can show to some of the pro Conti teams, the World Tour teams. I always think and say it's kind of when the talent meets opportunity, and for some riders they have all of that talent but just haven't quite got that opportunity to step up to that highest level, and Rick Ottema being one of those, and I think showing how strong he is today and how well he's riding. And also I think this type of race where you do have a mix of the World Tour teams and that second division of teams, that he can prove today what he is capable of doing and what he could offer. And you never know, as you say, some riders, they do make that step up sort of later on in their career, and let's not forget, only 29 years of age. It's still a possibility and could still be a huge asset to some of those bigger teams.
Yeah, most definitely. His 26-year-old teammate of last year, Sjoerd Baks, after some fantastic results on the Dutch national calendar, made a transfer to Alpecin Phoenix. So these things are still possible, of course, but yeah, for Rick Ottema, it's a big problem that in the Netherlands we don't have any second division teams anymore. Like in Belgium, they've got at least 3 with Sport Vlaanderen Baloise. They have Alpecin Phoenix, of course, Bingo Pauwelsausen. So that intermediate step between having a third division team and a World Tour team, we don't have that in the Netherlands anymore. We had the Roompot team. You remember the riders in orange?
Absolutely.
That was one of the talent squads. But yeah, that has sadly disappeared. So for Dutch riders, you have the development teams of DSM and Jumbo-Visma, but as a 29-year-old, you don't get into those teams. So there's not a lot of options.
Yeah, and you just don't have that springboard, that sort of intermediate type of team to help you grow and gain that experience before hopefully joining a World Tour team and sort of being in the top level of professional cycling. And I think this is why, it's great having these kind of races where you do have that combination of all 3 tiers of cycling, where riders can really show their capabilities, show themselves in the race. And we've got a numerous amount of the riders, whether that be in the second group on the road or even indeed the third group on the road, from those continental teams, those third division teams in professional cycling.
And of course also for these teams, as Rick Ottema sits up and wait for that first group to catch him, it's been really hard for the past 2 years, because many of their races on the national calendar were cancelled due to the COVID crisis. Some of the some of the pro races remained, but especially in the Netherlands, the rules have been so strict that at a certain point we had only the national championships and the Amstel Gold Race left. There was nothing else but these 2 races. So riders from these third division teams, including Rick Ottema, they just didn't have a lot of opportunity in the past 2 years to show what they were capable of.
And do you know what? I think because of that, when they do have that opportunity to show themselves in a race like today, they really do take it with both hands, and they want to make the most of that opportunity to show themselves to the bigger teams.
A little bit of a discussion here between Eenkhoorn and Mick van Dijken. Mick van Dijken, one of identical twins. They both have made the jump up to the professional team, so the World Tour team. Tim and Mick van Dijken, they look absolutely the same. So while we as commentators absolutely rejoiced that Adam Yates was going to a different team than Simon Yates, we have now two Dutch, very promising youngsters from the province of Zeeland, all the way in the southwest of the country, joining the pro ranks with Jumbo-Visma. And the great thing is, one of them is the under-23 time trial champion, and the other is the under-23 road race champion. All in the same year. But I can't remember who did what, by the way.
Huge talent within the family, that's for sure.
And that's why it's so great with Jumbo-Visma. They just printed the names of the riders on the helmets.
It's brilliant, and I think it's great. It is, and I think it's great for fans too, that when they can spot their favourite riders, they can really create a fan base as a team by having the names on the helmets. We've seen that before when teams had the riders' names on the jersey. And I think it's really nice to have that, the individualisation for the riders, but also, yeah, as I say, to create a nice fan base. And Jumbo-Visma have been one of the teams that have been vocal that they wanted to have set numbers on the backs rather than having new numbers every time they come to a race. But actually underneath their race numbers, they do all have their own individual number that they get given from the team. You'll see that printed on the jerseys.
Yeah, that would be an absolutely godsend for us as commentators. And although somebody most recently told me that I should be able to identify all the riders by their posture on the bike, I'd much rather have a bib number that I can read. Some of them are now in these jersey pockets and are absolutely impossible to identify. And yeah, set numbers in a race or during the season would be really interesting. Let's look at what's happening here in the second chasing group and who's doing the work there. Alpecin Fenix, they only have one rider represented at the front, meaning that their sprinter here, Jakub Moreczko, and Fabio van der Bosse, that's the small guy there in fourth position, is kind of stuck in this group, and Dries de Bond has to do it all by himself. But judging from body language here, also with Boy van Poppel there with the yellow helmet, this is not a full-on chase in this second group.
It's not, but they're wanting to try and do something, perhaps just pin that time gap and not let it go out any more than it already has. I mean, they got to a point in the race with around sort of 45 kilometres to go where it was only around 20 seconds, and I think it came down to a minimum of 13 seconds. So it was within striking distance, but has continued to go out as the group 3 and 4 did merge. And we did say it's either going to be a plus or a negative for that group as to whether they would close the gap to Group 2. Of course, they're now Group 1 on the road at the moment. But for Alpecin Fenix, only having Dries de Bond in that front group, it's certainly a lot of work for him to do, having 4 Jumbo-Visma riders to sort of look out for and look after, and also 3 riders from Achterhes Samsic in the red jerseys. It's a huge job on his hands, and this is one of those moments where he can't do it all, but he's going to give it a go.
Pascal Eenkhoorn, yeah, we saw that little discussion there at the tail end of this group between Pascal Eenkhoorn and Mick van Dijken. Mick van Dijken is obviously the dedicated sprinter here. He was second last week in Visit Friesland Elfstede race in that sprint with Elmar Reinders. But of course, it's up to Jumbo-Visma to make this a little bit of a harder race. And that is exactly what they're doing, and to make Achterhes Samsic do some more work. Very interesting to see 30 kilometers from the finish line that Jumbo-Visma is really trying to light up. Ooh, just avoiding that traffic island there. No signalation there, unfortunately. Everything was fine. But yeah, just to see that they are trying to make it a lively race and to see what the other teams are actually going to do. And then, of course, they're looking at Hugo Hofstetter, who to them is the biggest favourite in this group as it comes to the sprint.
definitely he's going to be the biggest threat in this group. He's very, very quick. They know how good and how informed he is at the moment too. So as soon as we've seen that first attack from this leading group from Pascal Eenhoorn, it's now just continued, hasn't it? Now, you know, Barnabas Peak, the Hungarian rider for Intermarché Wanty, he wants to try and counter-attack that and try and make a move here too. So I think from now on, there's going to be a lot of looking around at each other, lots of counter-attacks as things start to come back, and to try and really split that group, because yeah, it becomes quite dangerous, doesn't it, when they know that Hugo Hofstetter is the fastest man in this leading group of around 15, 16 riders.
Yeah, absolutely. Judging his current form of the French rider Hugo Hofstetter, I think we should probably say when it comes to French, he was already third in Kuurne, second in the Samijn, third in Grand Prix Montserrat, and those are all races in the last 2 weeks. So yeah, he's absolutely the man that they are fearing the most. Piek and also Mick van Dijken have a strong sprint as well, but yeah, when it comes to a sprint of this group, the man with number 72 is the biggest threat. And I think the tactics of Jumbo-Visma will be to smoke Arkea Samsic, to make them really, really work hard for it.
And to try and race aggressively, and as you say, just make sure you're constantly sort of attacking and counter-attacking coming into this sort of final 30 kilometers, that you're really starting to put the pressure on Arkea Samsic. That you know Hugo Hofstetter will be wanting to try and sit back and try and save the legs, and in a hope that things will come all back together and he can sprint from this very reduced group. But they will want to try and put the pressure on Arkea Samsic also.
Yeah, and of course we have one more time up the Vanberg coming up, and that comes at 14 kilometers from the finish line. And if you don't have a strong sprint, well, you have to maybe try and attack there. And a rider like Timo Rosa will absolutely try to do exactly that. Maybe Dries de Bond will be one of the riders to attack on the Vanberg. And the same goes for Dries van Gestel, of course, the sole representative here of Total Energie. So, yeah, there's of course two scenarios. Is somebody going to attack there on the last time of the Vanberg? But still, Hannah, 14 kilometers of a solo attack, or maybe even with 2 or 3, is still a long way out from the finish line, isn't it?
It's still a long way out, but we know it's a possibility that it can be done, and especially if you have 3 riders in a breakaway in that final 14 kilometers who are all cooperating well together. They have that good cohesion. They're all sort of racing for the victory, and if they feel that they can win in a 3-up sprint into the finish of Hoogveen. But I think for Jumbo-Visma, they'll want to try and make it difficult and put that pressure on before we get to the final ascent of the Vanberg, to really try and take the sting out of the legs, to really tire the legs out of Arkea Samsic and force them to chase. And hopefully, you know, by doing that, they will break things at in this group. And once you see that elastic snap, that's when the breakaway or that attacking group begins to stick.
Yeah, most definitely. Also in this group, we haven't really discussed him yet, is Søren Warenskjold, who won actually 2 stages last year in the Tour de l'Avenir. So that is the highest possible podium you can have when it comes to under 23 racing. And one of them was in a sprint in the first stage. He also won the prologue, by the way. Very strong time trialist as well, the man there in the yellow and red. Of course, he has to really play his cards well. He can't jump on every attack because he's the only one from his team, but he does have a strong sprint. He's a fantastic time trialist, very talented young man, 22 years of age, just turned 22 yesterday actually, from Mondal in Norway, in the center of the country. And he's also one of those riders we can look out for an attack in the final.
It's quite like Dries de Bond or even Barnabas
Exactly.
Peak, Casper van Ouden, when they are isolated in this group. They don't have any teammates, so they have to be really particular which attacks that they do go with. They have to try and take a look at which riders are those making the move and suss out whether it's a vital one that they should go with, which one is a dangerous move.
There's a lot of potential in this group of 15 riders, a lot of scenarios. We have 2 teams with a large representation, 4 times Jumbo-Visma, 3 times Achterhes Samsic. So they really have to play their game. They really have to play their strength in numbers. Also, don't forget our block continental team. So a third division team. These guys are not professional riders. They are students. They have a part-time job, etc. They are here as well with Antti Jussi Juntunen, a rider from Finland, and Joran Bloem, a Dutch rider there. So great result for that Dutch team to be so aggressive and in that group. But yeah, this is absolutely fantastic. We are about 12 kilometers out from the Vanberg at the moment. Not 12, 10 even. Time is really going fast when you're having fun. 10 kilometers out, and yeah, everybody is, of course, now playing the tactical games. Maybe some discussing with the sports manager, with the sports director. How can I win this race? Rick Pluimers is the next man to attack, followed by Dries van Gestel, Dries de Bond, and Joran Bloem, the rider there of the Ablok team, which is actually, Hannah, an alcohol-free sports beer, Ablok.
Wonderful.
It tastes really good.
Tastes good. Yeah, it tastes good.
Yeah.
It's a good sponsor to have.
Yeah.
And
I had
have to try that.
Yeah, they gave me some, and especially, you know, after a summer ride when it's really, really hot and you have a really, really cold beer, it's fantastic, and you don't get drunk, because having like a real beer after a hot ride in the summer can give you a little bit of a knockout blow. But
quenches your thirst.
It does that and a little bit more. But yeah, so that's what people usually like to hear. What does the sponsor do? Well, they make alcohol-free beer. Okay, that is that. Yeah, Jumbo-Visma have really decided to make this a race of attrition. Attack after attack after attack.
It really make it difficult going into that final ascent of the Vanberg, and all four riders sharing that workload of taking the turns to counter-attack and really start to break things up, as we can already see the next attack already starting to go from Jumbo-Visma straight through the other riders, come with a lot of speed into that left-hand turn and really inject some pace out of that left-hand corner to try and break things and break that elastic to the riders, even just if it's not a meaningful attack, just to try and add that pressure and to really string things out and force other teams, other riders to make that effort to close that junction.
15 riders at the front now. We saw from a earlier shot that Elpersin Phoenix was riding at the front of the second group, but due to all the attacks happening here, the gap is going out to 1.5 minutes at the moment. It looks very promising for these 15 riders. Yeah, this is absolutely not an organized chase going on in this second group. Nobody really seems interested in closing this gap down, but a lot is happening here. So very difficult speaking. A lot is happening here at the front with Timo Rosa now igniting the fuse for Jumbo-Visma. And look at that, Rick Ottema, after being in the breakaway all day, still has got some energy left to counter this move as well.
Yeah, brilliant. The rider there with that fluorescent helmet just closing that gap, and as you say, you know, just showing his strength as a rider, that he's taken a few kilometers just to take some fuel on board, some nutrition, take a gel, and try and recover from his long day out in the breakaway. But Rick Ottema, well, he's going again for breakaway number 2.
Yeah, this is what he does really well. Fantastic rider, Rick Ottema. Really want to put a little bit of an advertisement out for him here during this Ronde van Drenthe, because he is a fantastic bike rider. But this is really difficult for the likes of Hugo Hofstetter. He has to stay calm. He shouldn't panic and not just jump on every move.
And I think that comes from the sports director too, to make sure that you're keeping your rider calm and making sure that you're keeping composed at this point and keeping calm. And he does have 2 of the riders in this front group in Benjamin de Klerk and Kevin Vakwelen that can cover those counter-attacks. And as I said before, it's also about looking at which rider is in that breakaway and really picking your moment, which one is a real dangerous one. As you can see, the 3 riders from Achterhes Samsic, they're just coming together towards the back. Keeping that communication going is really important.
Also biding his time here at the back of the bunch is one of the better riders of Total Energie. That is Dries van Gestel. This is Timo Roose. We also have Hofstetter with number 72, with number 77 Kevin Vauquelin just ahead of him. This is Barnabas Piek, Søren Warenskjold, Casper van Uden, Mick van Dijk, and more attacks here. And now it's up to Rick Pluimers yet again, together with Benjamin de Klerk.
At some point, one of these breakaways is going to stick, and there's going to be such a long pause, a long lull from the riders behind that they'll gain a handful of seconds, and it becomes incredibly difficult to start to close things. And they're onto this long straight section where everything all in one line, all in the left-hand side of the road, all back together once again, but closed surprisingly there by Barnabas Piek, of course, a rider who doesn't have any teammates to help him in this front group. But as soon as things come back together, another move from Jumbo-Visma, Timo Roos, I think one of his third or fourth, maybe even fifth attempts at counter-attacking here. But the first move, you just mentioned that we hadn't seen too much action from Dries van Gestel, the rider from Total Energie, but he's put himself up in the front here along with one of the riders from a block too.
It's a fantastic spectacle as we are getting ever closer to the Van Berg, that 44-meter high fantastic mountain in the north of the Netherlands that is maybe going to be a decisive point here in this 60th edition of the Ronde van Drenthe. This is the finish line where the VIPs are enjoying the spring sunshine. Just like you said a while ago, Hannah, for the first time, we have some VIPs again.
Yeah, it's great to see, isn't it? That we have fans, we have VIPs back here supporting the riders. A lot of the VIPs will also be sponsors, partners of the race. So, of course, they want to come and enjoy the race that they're helping to support and promoting it with their colleagues, employees, perhaps even some of their customers and clients too. But yeah, a wonderful day to be a spectator at a bike race.
But not at the finish line, because we only do that once.
Yeah, it's certainly better to be on the Van Berg, isn't it? And having to give the riders the support and seeing them come up the Van Berg 5 times too. So certainly the optimum place to come and spectate and give your support and see perhaps the race-winning move.
Yeah, most definitely. And they do have the VIP tent. They do have the VIP tent on the top of the Van Berg, where a lot of people are watching. Also, one of the features of the Ronde van Drenthe is that they have these buses driving around the province, finding the cobbled sectors, finding the riders, and then everybody is being just wheeled back on the bus for the next stop. You get a little bit of a coffee and maybe some cake and a nice little chat. And that is also one of the features that organizer Femi van Issem has been doing for, I think, 40 years. She made a promise to her father, actually, when he was on his deathbed, and that is Albert Achterhes, the name giver of this Ronde van Drenthe. And when we stood at the finish in the city centre of Hogeveen, the old Mr. Achterhes was always sitting on his window, watching the race. I think he actually died 2 days before the race, if I recall correctly. And his daughter promised that she would keep the race alive in honor of her dad. And that's why it still has his name, and that she's still doing it. Well, I think she's been doing it for 30 years. I think my first Ronde van Drenthe was when I was 12, 13, something like that. And then she was already walking around there. And Femi always says it's an honor to work for the Ronde van Drenthe, because her entire organization relies on volunteers, and the
Het verleden, als ik me niet vergis, podium reed in het beloftenkampioenschap op de Vanberg. Ja, toch wel.
Ik heb nog niet gezien wat er nu al volgwagens achter de eerste groep zaten. In principe zou dat wel makkelijk moeten kunnen.
Daar ligt hij nog eens. De Vanberg.
Dus hier zien we de wind van links. Straks de Vanberg op. En dan weer wind van dezelfde kant, denk ik, als ze eraf gekomen zijn. Dat is ook altijd zo die typische kleine baantjes dat er iemand van achter zit en dan nog denkt de laatste onderdoor te komen, maar die is de groep genoeg of klein genoeg.
Nu kan het wel nog.
Dat ze minder gekke werk doen, maar in de aanvangsfase van die koersen is dat echt een ramp. Hè. Een ramp, maar ook leuk als je het wel goed kunt natuurlijk.
Tuurlijk. Ottema. Een van de opvallendste mannen in deze wedstrijd.
Ja.
die het voor DSM nu moet doen?
Geen simpele bochtjes ook, met veel snelheid, smal. Als je de bocht mist, direct een grindbak ernaast. Dat is niet evident.
Hofstetter die gaat moeten hopen dat er vooraan even gekeken wordt, want
Ja.
anders is dat een heel vervelend gat om te dichten.
Als dat nu met de zijwind goed ronddraait, dan moet het in orde zijn.
Kijk, dat is een tussensprintje. Hè. Dat is echt proberen om in 10, 15 seconden een inspanning te leveren om naar dat achterwiel te gaan. Het gaat hem nog lukken ook.
Toen mij terugdenken aan Colbrellis in actie na de Berendries in het nieuwsblad.
Dat is wel een beslissende goede zet hoor van Hofstetter. Kijk
En
eens.
Rozen die roept in het oorken aan zijn ploegmaat.
Kom aan, volle gas.
Nee, even wachten denk ik. Die ging op
Omdat
een
hij zelf op dat
Voilà.
gaatje ging, sorry. Hè.
Die Moroze kwam van kop en die had niet direct ingepikt. Waarschijnlijk gedacht dat die man van dat blok er nog tussen zat. En zijn lichaamshouding verraadt dat meer pijn doet dan gedacht.
Deze mannen vinden elkaar onmiddellijk. Maar ze hebben nu natuurlijk wel de snelste man aan hun been. Van Gestel, de man die het vuur aan de lont stak. Hier moet de bond nu een beetje achter de feiten aanhollen.
Ja.
Slecht gepositioneerd aan de Vanberg begonnen. Heeft
Ja.
het te maken met de benen. Kan ook natuurlijk. Want dit lijkt nu wel een beetje een verloren zaak met de Samsikken aan het wiel.
Ja, daar vrees ik ook voor. En nu Eekhoorn die daar zelf aan gaat. Als ze dat toerijdt. Het probleem is, hier vooraan zouden ze misschien wel graag wachten op Pascal die aankomt. Maar als je dat doet, neem je zodanig de vibe uit die groep.
Ja.
En om dan weer op gang te krijgen is ook moeilijk.
De bond met de waakhond aan het wiel. Ja, die zit echt in een vervelende situatie nu. 10 seconden. Daar doen ze het voorlopig mee. Open vlakte nu. De wind die nog heel even gaat spelen. En dan richting Hogeveen. Pejak, moeilijk in te schatten.
Ja, aangename kennismaking.
Amai. Als enige man van die ploeg helemaal mee. Op elk moment in de koers. Nooit achter de feiten.
En de man van dat blok als enige continentale renner hiermee. Ook leuk.
De bond vraagt om rond te draaien. Ik vrees ervoor. Vanwege nog 2 man van Jumbo en 2 man van Arkea hier. Dus dat is een verloren zaak. En voor het overige jongens die daar net niet mee konden. Dus als ze vooraan elkaar blijven vinden, hebben ze het hier zitten. En dan zijn uiteindelijk toch vooraan ook een hoop verwachte namen verzeild geraakt. Hofstetter, Rozen, Van Gestel. Kunnen we geen verrassing hebben. Van Gestel vechten om daar ook weer uit de wind te zetten. Oh. Het is echt laveren.
Ja, als er van voor een klein akkefietje is of een kleine correctie in het stuur of in het sturen, dan als je meer achteraan die groep zit, is die wapper op maar groter. Hè.
Voilà, u ziet het daar goed aan de wapperende exterio's links van de baan. Wind die redelijk strak waait. Je zou denken, dit is nog speelbaar. Deze man is niet meer speelbaar. Dat is uitgespeeld.
Ja, lekker achteraan.
Een ambetant moment.
Auto's zitten erachter. Als dat voldoende wagens zijn, kan daar misschien wel nog iets aan gedaan worden. Maar dus zolang dat die auto er niet is, blijft er gewoon beter op die lekke band rijden. Want anders staat het om met de schimmel aan de kant.
1 Belg hier nog. Vooral Nederlands geweld. Een Fransman, die vooral heel snel is. En een Hongaar in dit groepje. 6 man. Voilà, volledige samenstelling. 3 Nederlanders, een Belg, een Fransman en een Hongaar. Het zou het begin van een mop kunnen zijn. Op papier zeg je Hofstetter, maar de Jumbo schema waarop we daarnet aan het koersen waren. Rond de klok van, ja, wat zal het zijn? 10 over, kwart over zijn we binnen. En dan kan u straks ook uiteraard kijken naar Parijs-Nice met Renaat en José. De zes rijders. De volgende groep als de 1,5. Hier ook Alpecin, maar het is in de verdrukking. Met andere woorden, Van Keijsbulk onder meer. Willems, de man van Minerva.
En onze Ottoman maakt nog kans op top 10, denk ik.
Interesting tactics coming up.
Die zit er nog bij daar.
Heeft er ooit al een Fransman gewonnen, vraag ik me af. Even kijken. Ziet er niet zo naar uit. Belgen dus, een paar keer. Een keer of 4. Duitsers, ja. Ook. Nederlanders, een Tsjech, een Italiaan, een Zweed. Maar een Fransman, nee, dat nog niet.
In the run-in to Hoogveen, if they wanted to try and attack this group of 6 to try and get away and really attack out of those corners. It's something that we saw yesterday from Anouska Costa of Jumbo-Visma, and that if you can just take a lot of want to counter-attacking into that finale and really force the other teams who don't have any support, any teammate to help them bring it back. They can really force them to chase, and hopefully they'd want to try and
of course, he doesn't want to, but this is a group that is inching closer. Dries de Bont, Rick Ottema, Vauquelin, De Klerk, Juntunen, Pluimers, and Pascal Inkhorn. They really have to try and get back to the front. Same goes for Casper van Uden. The gap is 17 seconds. They can see them in the distance, but especially the final in the city of Hoogeveen has got a lot of corners, and they are not slowing down. New attack here. Timo Roose, Dries van Gestel.
Yeah, we can see this is where now that those attacks will start from the team of Jumbo-Visma, and you know, if it doesn't quite work out, then they do have Mick van Dijk to make another counter-attack. And at the moment, it's all down to those riders, the likes of Hugo Hofstetter, Barnabas Peak of Intermarché, to close this gap. He's struggling now, though.
He is really struggling at the back now. Hugo Hofstetter in the red. I am mightily impressed by the man from the Ablock cycling team, the 22-year-old Joren Bloem. But this was a really difficult moment for Hugo Hofstetter. And let's see if they know the riders behind them. They do know, because Benjamin de Klerk is now attacking, trying to get to the front. They can actually see them there in the distance, Hannah. This game is not over yet.
I'm trying to work out actually if this second part of the chasing group has split into another 3, because it looks like we have another one. It looks like there's only a group of 3. Dries de Bont, I think, is up there, and then we have one of the riders, Vauquelin from Achterhes Samsic, and also Rick Bloemers, who is making a move. So it has split into 2, and good things for Dries de Bont if he wants to try and get back into contention to take the victory. It's still not over yet with 4.5 kilometers to go. That 22-second gap can be closed down.
I was kind of mistaken with the yellow jersey there of Vauquelin, thinking it was the Dutch national champion. But indeed, we still have the 6 riders at the front. Timo Roze, Hugo Hofstetter, Dries van Gestel, Barnabas Piek.
Moeilijke periode gehad en nu dus bij Wanty Intermarché proberen zijn profcarrière een nieuwe elan te geven. Dat lijkt hij nu wel even te lukken vandaag.
Ja. Maar nieuw elan, als naar een wildtoerploeg mag overgaan, is dat niet per se een nieuw elan. Dus dat zal ook een volgende stap zetten waarschijnlijk.
Ja, natuurlijk. Ja. Gelijk.
Zijn eerste jaar in die Australische ploeg zullen de coronajaren geweest zijn.
Rozen, goed moment was dat. Hofstetter wel onmiddellijk doorzien.
Ja. En Van Gestel nu heel attent.
En Barnabas Peak, die nu heel even een gaatje moet laten. Bloem doet het niet. En Van Gestel nu zelf. Van Gestel zelf.
Straf.
Van Gestel zelf.
Vooral de reactie van die andere 2.
Kijk joh.
Dat is nu een keer
die
als
kijken
2
gewoon
honden
naar elkaar.
vechten voor een been.
Dit kan de sprong van de winst zijn, Bert.
En daar even de vluchtheuvel over.
Van Gestel alles of niks. Dit is een uitstekend moment. Dit gaat vooruit. Daar zit Poeier op.
En nu Timo Rozen tegen zijn ploegmaat van spring maar.
Ja, maar dat is ondertussen wel al een stevig gat geworden om die sprong te maken natuurlijk. Peak heeft het beste ook gehad, denk ik. Ik denk dat de meesten hier het beste gehad hebben. Van Gestel met
als hij dat wint, heeft
geweldige
hij daar
poging.
niet gestolen. Hè.
Het ploegenspel van de anderen helemaal ontmijnd.
Je moet ook weten, bij de vorige doortocht, of vlak voor de vorige doortocht, waren ze aan het koersen. Dus 30 van het einde was het elke toer springen bijna.
Dan blijft aan het eind natuurlijk de sterkste over. Het is nog niet binnen, hè, voor alle duidelijkheid. Het is nog niet binnen.
2 kilometer, dat moet maar een kleine 3 minuten duren.
Schutting te vinden, Dries. We zijn niet van gisteren. Maar het mag. In ieder geval, deze jongen al aan een heel goed voorjaar bezig. Wordt nu beloond. Uitslagen gereden in Kuurne, ook in Le Samin. Hier wordt nog wat gevochten, maar dat is tegen de bierkaai. Ook al 13e gereden in het verleden in de Ronde van Vlaanderen. Ja. Dan heb je kwaliteiten, met andere woorden. Frank Boeien maakt er snel wat sluikreclame op links.
Zou het lawaai maken als hij over de meet komt?
We gaan proberen onze kop buiten te steken. Maar hij zit al in het zicht van de vaste camera's. Dries van Gestel, de man uit de Kempen, uit Arendonk. Gaat het hier straks gaan afmaken. Dik gedaan, dik gedaan. Ja, het is binnen. Is al aan het praten tegen de ploegleider. Handen in de lucht, ruimte. Van Gestel wint de Profronde van Drenthe.
En onze Peak verrast.
Jawel.
Verrast ons.
En die wordt hier tweede voor Hofstetter. Rozen is vierde. Goed, hè?
Straffen.
Knap gedaan, hoor.
Ja.
Hier.
Groet aan Robert.
Ja, Robert Dont, de man van, met het jasje van Sport Vlaanderen Baloise.
Onze jonge Fransman van 20 jaar.
Vauquelin. En hier gaat de bond
voor
schuddend
Ja.
nog wat punten meepakken. niet tevreden van de koers. Maar ik denk op het moment dat de beslissing viel, was het vrij duidelijk. Dus dan heb je je niets te verwijten in de zin van dat het net niet goed genoeg was.
Ja, als je in de kopgroep zit met een groep van een ploeg met 3 man, een ploeg met 4 man.
En
hij
dan
maakt
kunnen
het af.
afmaken, ja, amai.
Chapeau.
Man die in het verdere verleden Belgisch kampioen werd liever bij de junioren.
Hier de sprint van Gerben Thijssen die we gaan zien.
Toch nog eens lanceren.
Gehangmaakt door Van Poppel.
Ja, hij gaat eruit komen.
En Hinter Maretsko, de man van Alpecin.
Het is Thijssen die het met duidelijk verschil afmaakt. Maar dat is voor een verre ereplaats natuurlijk.
Bij verre ereplaats, dat is ook nog top 20 zeker. Het zijn mannen die content waren als ze hier 19e waren.